this potential threat and wanting to smooth out this adversary, which was that this fragile state, even ignoring the humanitarian crisis of millions of people not sure where they should go to work or where they should get food or how their new country was supposed to operate, the rest of the world was wrestling with a potentially bigger issue, which was that this fragile state had a stockpile of thousands of spicy fireworks, and it could easily just regress back into another communist adversary. Yeltsin was, at the end of the day, a former Soviet politician, so there was no reason to expect that he couldn't just revert the country back to a Soviet system of government. Seeing this potential threat and wanting to smooth out the situation as much as possible, a plan was put in place based off a handbook published by the International Monetary Fund and other international financial institutions. Here's a question for you. Let's say you have a country that is a complete failure. The government is gone, the currency no longer exists, people don't know who owns what. Basically, everything is starting from zero. What do you do? Well, luckily some very smart people thought of exactly what to do, which is why we had the Washington Consensus. So named because it was formulated by the kinds of institutions that have their offices in Washington, DC.
Whoa.
The Washington Consensus is basically the IKEA instruction book you use when you were trying to build a national economy from nothing but flat-pack components. And it has 10 basic instructions. Fiscal policy discipline, with avoidance of large fiscal debts relative to GDP, redirection of public spending from subsidies, especially indiscriminate subsidies, towards broad-based provision of pro-growth, pro-poor services like primary education, primary healthcare, and infrastructure investment, tax reform, broadening the tax base and adopting moderate marginal tax rates, interest rates that are market-determined and positive, but moderate in real terms, competitive exchange rates, trade liberalisation, the liberalisation of imports with a particular emphasis on elimination of quantitative restrictions like quotas, licensing and tariffs, liberalisation of inward foreign direct investment, privatisation of state enterprises, deregulation and legal security for property rights. Basically, put these things in place and you should have an economy. Now, some of these were easier to implement than others. Trade liberalisation, for example, started off slow between its former Soviet peers, but eventually Russia started trading its raw materials with the rest of the world. It also implemented a new currency in 1992, which it made exchangeable for the old Soviet ruble that came before it. A funny little side note was that the 1 ruble coin, worth less than 1 American cent at the time, was practically identical in size and weight to the 5 Swiss franc coin, which led to many Russians taking bags of these coins to hundreds of Swiss vending machines and buying trucks full of snacks that they would take back to Russia. I guess it didn't take them too long to embrace capitalism after all. That's not very important, but it is very funny. What was very important was the point about the privatisation of state enterprises. You might think, given examples like China, that opening up to international trade and embracing the free market was something of a cheat code to guarantee economic growth, at least in the short term. Unfortunately, that didn't really play out in Russia, and in the decade following the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia's GDP actually more than halved. The biggest reason for this was the botched privatisation of the nation's industries. In the Soviet Union, all industry was owned by the state, but the Washington Consensus calls for value-adding industries to be privatised. There are 2 reasons for this recommendation. The first is that it establishes a free market. You can't reform your economy on the foundation of capitalism if all of the biggest industries in the nation are controlled by the state. The second reason for this recommendation is because it can make the country a lot of money in a very short space of time. Governments all over the world sell public assets off to free up cash, and former communist nations theoretically have the most to sell off. Think of this as generating seed capital to launch a new business venture, only instead of it being a company, it's an entire country. Russia did have a lot of valuable industries, natural resource extraction being the big one, but there was also telecommunications, utilities and manufacturing. The only question became, who should this go to? The logical answer would be the highest bidder, but there are some problems with this. At the time, the highest bidder would have been companies from the West, and it was understandable that the new Russian Federation wasn't ready to stomach an American company controlling their oil fields just yet. So, most of these assets got sold off internally. The problem was that people emerging from a failed socialist state normally aren't flush with the kind of cash needed to make realistic bids on pieces of national infrastructure. The corruption that followed almost cemented Russia's fate for the following decades. Officials in charge of dishing out the nation's industries were paid off to award factories and mines to well-connected individuals. many times themselves, a family member, or whoever gave them the best bribe. This not only left major industries in the hands of a very small number of very corrupt people, but it also meant that the country didn't raise nearly as much revenue as it could have had this privatisation process been handled more fairly. These well-connected individuals, or oligarchs as they came to be known, not only ran these industries poorly, but they also took almost all of the money that they made from their dodgy operations and invested it abroad. This process was assisted by the Russian government's insistence on maintaining a high foreign exchange rate. Any money made in Russia by the oligarchs could be transferred to American dollars or more commonly British pounds at a rate higher than the free market would normally dictate. The Russian government paid a lot of money to maintain this exchange rate, but all it really did was help wealthy and corrupt Russian businessmen buy flats and football teams in countries that they thought were worth investing in. This capital flight meant that the government had a hard time raising money and had to rely on continued international borrowing. This all came to a head in 1998, when a failed war in Chechnya and the Asian financial crisis combined to give the new Russian Federation its first economic crisis. The government was no longer able to pay its debts, and the exchange rate fell sharply. Mismanaged industries were failing to attract foreign or domestic buyers, and companies weren't even able to make payments to their staff, leading to widespread workers' riots across the country. Foreign investors fled the country, further driving down asset markets and causing a run on the reserves of the Russian central bank. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund tried to intervene with an injection of $22 billion. These institutions were happy to provide support, not only because that's their core function, but also because nobody wanted this financial turmoil to push Russia back towards Soviet-style socialism. Unfortunately, and perhaps to nobody's surprise, it was later revealed that as much as $5 billion of that injection was stolen by connected officials as soon as the money entered Russia. But this sharp decline after a rather disappointing decade was something of a springboard for the Russian turnaround. Russian luck started to turn around after this crash for a few reasons. The first was that they didn't have that much further to fall. But on a more serious note, the currency lost 80% of its value practically overnight, which is terrible for the economy at large, but did allow for debts and unpaid wages to be paid back with relative ease. Russia was also a great beneficiary of the steady increase in oil prices that would be felt over the following decade. It was at this time that one Vladimir Putin would become president, succeeding Boris Yeltsin, who had fallen sick and handed the reins to his then Prime Minister. The new president oversaw a series of reforms that, in fairness, did do a lot of good for the economy, but his first order of business was put into action on the 31st of December 1999, and it was titled "On Guarantees for the Former President of the Russian Federation and the Members of His Family." This ensured that corruption charges against the outgoing president and his relatives would not be pursued. Basically, it was a presidential pardon for the ex-president's corruption scandal, which conveniently also happened to involve Putin himself. Yeah, not off to a great start. Anyway, despite continued corruption, Russia did do well for itself over the next decade. Large industries became increasingly consolidated, but that meant that they were able to compete with their larger international rivals. The domestic market was the real winner though. For the first time ever, the Russian people had access to a financial system similar to what we take for granted in the West. The people were able to borrow money, find formal jobs, and use this income to support genuine businesses in the country itself. Yes, an enormous amount of wealth was still being disproportionately and perhaps even unfairly distributed to a very small group of people. But let's be honest with ourselves, it's not like that doesn't happen in our own economies, right? That's just part of being a free market economy. Well, more on that later. Russia also managed to get through the global financial crisis of 2008 relatively unscathed. Its banks were so new and unsophisticated that they avoided most of the problems caused by advanced financial instruments. They were, however, hit temporarily by the rapid decline in oil prices at the time. Nevertheless, by 2013, strong growth had resumed and the economy was more than 10 times larger than it was at the lows of the 1990 financial crisis. The new president was certainly controversial, but sometimes a struggling nation needs strong leadership to get it headed in the right direction. The problem was primarily who this prosperity would serve, a point that became particularly apparent in 2014 with the invasion of Crimea. Following the shocking actions taken by the Russian government, the United States, the European Union, Australia, Canada and Japan imposed sanctions on Russia. These sanctions did three things. They put a ban on the provision of technology for oil and gas extraction. They put limits on travel for international Russian citizens who were close to President Putin, aka the oligarchs, and it banned the provision of credits to Russian oil companies and state banks. That last one was the big one. If state banks and oil companies couldn't raise money, they couldn't lend money, which in theory should starve the Russian state of the resources needed to continue hostilities. In practice, it really didn't do too much, for a couple of reasons. They weren't particularly harsh, and they were rolled back pretty quickly after the fact. Russia was also more or less ready for them. Decades of selling oil and gas internationally meant that Russia had huge foreign currency reserves. Almost all oil is traded in American dollars, which meant that the Russian government and Russian businesses were easily able to stockpile the world reserve currency to keep on hand for a rainy day. The nation did need to use some of these reserves, and the value of the ruble did drop in international markets, but in many ways this was kind of a good thing for export businesses in Russia, because a devalued domestic currency made them more competitive in international markets. That wasn't to say that there were no consequences. The economy did shrink, and the country experienced high levels of inflation as imported goods were banned, meaning supplies of everything from food to medicine was restricted to what could be produced locally. This period was not great for the average Russian. But the thing is, the decision makers didn't care. Russia is potentially the most unequal country in the world. And I know, I've said that about a few places, but here's the thing. We use a measurement called the Gini coefficient to measure inequality. This can either be used to measure income inequality, as in my boss earns 3 times as much as I do, or wealth inequality, as in my boss has 3 houses and drives a car worth more than the apartment I share with 4 other broke students. In the case of Russia, we will be looking at wealth inequality. The Gini coefficient ranks economies on a scale of 0 to 1 or 0 to 100, depending on who you ask. 0 represents perfect equality. Everyone has exactly the same amount of wealth. And 100 means that all the wealth in a country is controlled by a single person and everyone else has nothing. According to the World Bank, Russia has a wealth Gini of 37.5, which is not great, not terrible. It's certainly better than the United States, 41.4, and far from South Africa's top spot at 63. The problem is that these figures are only constructed using the data that the World Bank has access to. The financial elite of Russia, all the way up to the president himself, have been exposed time and time again for moving money all over the world in order to hide and protect their true wealth. Studies from institutions such as Credit Suisse have theorised that if this money was moved back and counted within Russia, then the country would comfortably be the most unequal in the world. What this meant was that the people with the money and power to influence policy decisions were not the one being hit by these sanctions. Russian banks that were dry on cash could just tap foreign currency reserves and redirect lending away from regular consumers, all while those regular citizens struggled to find food and build a future in a failing state. In a regular democracy, this would have been the end of the powers that be. But of course, Russia hasn't really ever been a real democracy. In a place like Australia or America, you hold on to power by keeping the voting population happy. Yes, there are political donations, and yes, there are news networks that can influence these outcomes, but it still all comes down to the votes. In a place like Russia, you hold on to power by appeasing the same group of people that squirmed and bribed their way into owning the major industries of the nation. This leads us to the Russia of about 3 weeks ago. The country that had made itself a lot of money by selling a lot of oil and gas to a lot of countries that were beholden to their natural resource wealth. A country that was run by a very small group of people for the benefit of a very small group of people. A country that had a larger war chest of foreign reserve than it did even back in 2014. And a country that saw very little in the way of consequences for its past acts of aggression. The only thing left to see now is if this new wave of sanctions will be enough to finally get them to regret their decisions. Something that we will be trying to explore in next week's video. But for now, it's time to put Russia on the Economics Explained national leaderboard. Starting as always with size, Russia currently has a GDP of 1.48 trillion US dollars. This will almost certainly fall dramatically in coming years as sanctions and a costly war hit their economy's bottom line, but for now it's still the 11th largest economy in the world, and it gets an 8 out of 10. Russia has a GDP per capita of just over 10,000 US dollars. This is down significantly from its peak of $16,000 in 2013, and for reference, this figure is putting it behind China, which has a GDP per capita of $10,500. It gets a 5 out of 10. Growth has been underwhelming. especially when compared to the 2000s when it genuinely looked like Russia could be a real modern economic superpower. But corruption, mismanagement and warmongering are rarely a recipe for economic success, and that's clear to see in an economy that, despite all of its natural resource advantages, has shrunk over the past decade. It gets a 0 out of 10. Stability and confidence. Well, even before these latest hostilities, you would only ever want to do business in Russia if you really needed to do business in Russia. The sovereign risk of an openly hostile nation is just not conducive to business, and given the actions of the nation for the past 2 weeks, it's going to be a pariah on the world stage for a long time to come. 0 out of 10. Finally, industry. Russia has an abundance of natural resources and not much else going for it. Most businesses that do well for themselves within Russia look to leave as quickly as possible to go to the less risky and more accommodating business environments of Europe and North America. It gets a 3 out of 10. Altogether, this gives Russia an average score of 3.2 out of 10, which puts it in line with other economic success stories like Cyprus and El Salvador.
El Salvador, the country that like just went all in on Bitcoin because fuck it. What? The e-scooter apocalypse.
California, a city built for the vehicle wheel and not dockless e-scooter rental companies to begin their first large-scale invasions of US soil. Since 2017, companies like Lime and Bird have established garrisons across the United States. And ever since their arrival, these dockless wonders have been dodging public safety legislation as quickly as they breeze through three-lane traffic. E-scooter haters, though, will argue that these things are nothing but 48-volt street trash that will part you with your front teeth and beg to be booted into the nearest body of water. Personally, I'm not sure how I feel about them. So let's have a look at e-scooters from both sides, and let's figure it out together. But first, where did scooters come from?
Good question.
The first motor-powered scooters hit streets all the way back in 1915. Developed as a transport solution during wartime oil shortages, the Autoped was a fuel-efficient micro-transport device that turned postal workers into gliding parcel slingers. And in an early example of influencer marketing, the Autoped was advertised to women by famous and wealthy suffragettes. Users were able to breeze through bombed-out European streets, outpacing any safety regulation and then disappearing before the invention of traffic lights. Throughout the next century, new scooters came and went, as the definition of what constituted a scooter changed dramatically. In the 21st century, there were attempts to improve upon the elegant kick scooter design with micro-transport monstrosities like the Segway, but it was the micro-scooter craze of the early 2000s that taught a generation to scoot again, if they survived the ankle owies that they were famous for inflicting. The modern electric scooter, though, is really a Chinese innovation. Beijing tech giant Xiaomi were the first to make electric scooters viable, efficient, and popular. Instead of being powered by gas or foots, these new Sino scooters were powered by efficient lithium-ion batteries. What followed was an explosion in e-scooter demand, in spite of the many regular explosions that these scooters were causing.
Fucking English. What the hell was that?
These scooters, though, were mostly scooters were causing demand, in spite of the many ion batteries. What followed was an explosion in e-scooter demand, in spite of the many regular explosions that these scooters were causing.
That's a fucking battery.
e-scooters, though, were mostly just retail scooters that people were importing from China. It was Tencent executive Brad Bao who had the idea of dumping these lithium-ion battery bombs on every available street corner.
Lime started with the vision of making our urban living much more livable. Lime has been devoted and committed to that vision.
Founding Lime Scooter with Toby's son in 2016, the San Francisco-based company started up with close ties with Chinese manufacturers. And Brad himself is actually a pretty rad guy, as he's happy to tell you that he came up with the idea for Lime during a vision quest at Burning Man.
Burning Man has a lot of influence on me. There's no judgment, there's no money, rather than everyone peacefully together to make something magical happen.
It's also a high-density environment, 70,000 people and there's no car. It's just mind-blowing.
And I can see where Brad's coming from here. E-scooters are definitely a convenient way to traverse a flat, roadless desert on the search for some stinky festival box. But could they also be used on short city trips? Brad thought so. And so he dumped his first fleet of Lime e-scooters on Santa Monica streets in 2018. But they already had competition. By the time Lime arrived, birds were already crowding Santa Monica like some kind of Hitchcockian nightmare. Both companies launched in LA's tourism and homelessness hotspot as they saw the transport opportunity in a city without a center. And Bird CEO Travis van der Zanden had a bold stratagem. Surely he who had the most scooters would inevitably become the scooter king.
We would import these retail scooters off of Alibaba, and our team actually was hand soldering the GPS units that would go on top of the scooters in the actual WeWork, and we started with 10 out in front of the WeWork in Santa Monica, and people loved them, so every day we would scramble to hand solder more and get them out.
Bird's first flock of e-scooters, though, didn't survive the mean streets of Santa Monica for long, with an average unit lasting all of 30 days. Regardless, Uber and Lyft smelt the stink of opportunity, quickly assembling their own brands and dumping them on Santa Monica's scooter-ridden streets too, where some citizens had finally had enough.
I've been hit twice. I've got 2 herniated discs in my neck.
I stepped out and one slammed right into me.
Basically, this drives bowling pins in Santa Monica.
The city quickly limited the number of scooters allowed on the ground and gave preference to these new rideshare-backed competitors. Bird and Lime protested by making their scooters inaccessible during the vote to restrict their service.
Like Hector Bello found out. Does it work? No. He eventually got this notice that all of Santa Monica is a no-ride zone.
Yeah, that's right. We live in a world where the machines will actually go on strike on behalf of their startup overlords. It also really begs the question, can they turn off the scooters while you're riding them? If I was CEO, I'd have a big red button installed. Not to ever press it, I would just get off on the power of knowing I could. Techno dystopias aside, the scooters were actually doing the job they were meant to. More than 2.6 million e-scooter and e-bike trips were taken in Santa Monica in a single year, and they were mostly being used for short, work-related trips. Boosted by this success, scooters were soon piling up in Venice Beach, downtown and beyond. But could they work in cities with viable public transport, or where you can walk places and stuff? Well, they were gonna have to if Bird and Lime were gonna live up to the billion-dollar valuations they received after only 1 year in operation. This forced Bird and Lime to expand to other cities and countries as quickly as possible. But wherever the scooters landed, they were met with, let's say, a few mixed responses.
Fuck! God, I fucked up the braking. Did Eddie Burbacker to Gus?
When Bird and half a dozen copycats migrated north to San Francisco, they quickly overwhelmed the city's puny, pedestrian-friendly sidewalks, forcing the city to ban e-scooters in May 2018, and only to bring them back in severely restricted numbers.
Yeah, they're definitely a menace.
Like, have some decency, like, move it to the side.
While the scooters were banned in San Francisco, they were flying free in the neighboring city of Oakland. The problem was that they were flying straight into Lake Merritt. with the city fishing 60 fallen e-scooters out of the lake in October 2018 alone. Regardless, Lime and Bird both made it across the Atlantic in 2019, landing in the French city of Marseille. An attractive scooter dumping ground thanks to its large size and its year-round scooting temperatures, which is like, quite warm. Uncharacteristically though, the French enthusiastically resisted invasion, tossing e-scooters into the ocean like it was roll-on deodorant. Divers were forced to retrieve dozens of scooters per trip, leaving Katamari-style piles of broken scooters ready to rust on the dock. With Lime, Bird and dozens of other competitors desperate to become the market leader, the war on e-scooters was being fought on 100 different fronts across the world. So much so that documenting and posting your crimes against scooter kind basically became a worldwide trend.
The fuck?
And we think the exciting thing about that is how quickly not just riders have adopted the scooters, but actually cities have really embraced them.
The citizens of New Zealand were particularly hostile to the arrival of e-scooters, probably confused by technology that couldn't be surfed or turned into pie. The city of Hamilton inflicted mass casualties on Lime's first troops on the ground by laying waste to an average of 8 scooters a week. Bird scooters proving themselves to be flightless in every hemisphere. All this vandalism, combined with the already short shelf life of the scooters themselves, meant that these firms were burning through their venture capital faster than a lithium-ion battery will burn through a carpet. Bird and Lime were both making huge losses, mostly owing to the costs of producing or buying these scooters and then replacing them every 3 months. But don't worry kids, this is 21st century capitalism. It's not a race to see who can make the most profitable company, it's a race to see who can make the biggest, market-leading, loss-making juggernaut who can then hoover up the assets of all its dead competitors at a discount. So to better weather the elements and to survive casual beatings, both Bird and Lime beefed up their base models. The average Bird scooter now only has a marginally shorter lifespan than a Spanish Flea, about 5 months. The first problem that e-scooter friendly cities encounter is that people will just leave these things fucking anywhere, or knock them down like dominoes for fun. Even on the jumbo sidewalk streets of Santa Monica, the city has been forced to pass tedious legislation on where and when you can scoot. Street corners are covered in reminders that tell you not to scoot on the sidewalk, and scooter companies themselves geo-ring-fence the scooters so they can't even be operated in certain areas. While the e-scooters themselves were getting drowned, burned and bludgeoned, they were also inflicting casualties of their own. The fact is, these things are quite dangerous, but they become more dangerous when they are sharing narrow, crowded streets with a binge-drinking population. This is probably why the British were initially a bit skittish about granting the right to scoot to its population.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for stopping.
That's partly why I'm riding this e-scooter in the metaverse. It's currently legal to buy and sell these scooters, but it is illegal to ride them anywhere other than on your private land. Oh, which is what makes this ad read of questionable legal compliance. But that's okay, because I live on the edge, or should I say, the ridge. As soon as my spanking new Ridge wallet arrived, I knew I wouldn't need my bulky old leather one ever again. Interrupt after years fucking circle line at rush hour. Perfect e-scooter market. All you need to do
this fucking bro is a goddamn Brit, is he?
Might seem like the perfect e-scooter market. A large urban city with a mostly carless population who will risk life and limb to avoid the fucking circle line at rush hour. Above ground though, the city's roads are narrow and rendered illogical after years of building on top of the parts that burnt down, got bombed out or lived in by poor people. Dockless e-scooter companies have only just been given permission to land, and even then it's only in restricted spaces and only on trial schemes. Their 3-year absence though has led to widespread e-scooter ownership in the UK, with British people either unaware or giving no shits about them being illegal to ride. But are the British right to be scooter skittish? Are these things safe? Well, luckily, we can now find out by looking at all the data of the cities that have allowed these things to fly free. The BMJ conducted a scoping study, looking at 28 other peer-reviewed studies of scooter injuries in different cities across the world.
God, the pace
and it
goes to
revealed a
shit.
worrying trend. A high percentage of e-scooter injuries were head injuries, especially when compared with other mobility options like cycling. The essential and overlooked problem with e-scooters is in their basic design. Unlike a bike, you ride it standing up and therefore higher up. Meaning that if you fall off one of these things, you've got a longer way to fall and are more likely to go arse over tit. Scooters also lack the suspension of a bike, which insulates the rider from uneven or rough terrain. You can now attach a seat to some private e-scooters, but let's face it, if you're doing that, you've basically bought a turbo little rascal with one wheel missing. I would also argue, without any data, but with a basic grasp of human nature, that these dockless rental companies are creating an opportunity for a more impulsive model of scooter use. As in, glug glug, scoot scoot, smashy smashy. In September 2019, Berlin opened their arms and craniums to e-scooters, allowing 11,000 units to have free reign in the city, providing us with an excellent sample size.
Hey, what? Was ist los da?
Scooter injuries in Berlin were found to be more common on weekends, and a significant cohort were helmet-free and intoxicated or unfamiliar with the city. Now, are these companies responsible for the actions of those who use their service? No. Car manufacturers aren't liable for the actions of drunk drivers, but then again, they aren't dumping Toyotas in tourist spots with the keys in the ignition. But as far as Bird and Lime are concerned, these injuries are just martyrdoms in the holy war against our real enemy, the car.
But Bird's mission is to remove cars from the road, reduce traffic, reduce carbon emissions.
You gave a random man your account.
You know, riders across the world really kick the addiction to cars, whether it's sharing, renting by
I mean,
the month,
you've never
owning,
been good at anything ever,
platform.
so I wouldn't expect you to
all those things
understand
fit
what
very
competition
nicely with our mission.
Any environmental kudos that these companies lay claim to
Oh
is
my
immediately
God.
undercut by the short shelf life of
But
these
I
scooters,
won't use your
as well as the
sensitive
cost
word
and
because-
carbon necessitated in their production and replacement. Even private
Double
e-scooters rarely
standards
live longer than 2
you.
years and are hard to fix.
Don't I
When these
apologize.
dockless scooters aren't
Apologize
being
for
used by
making you feel the
tourists,
need
they
to
are being
label
used for
yourself.
short, work-related trips, mostly under 3 miles.
Yes.
Trips that could just as easily be taken by, say, a bike. For those unfamiliar, a bike
Why
is
do
a
you
19th
apologize?
century invention that is both
How do I
safer,
feel?
healthier for you, doesn't fall
Because you
apart in 2
deserve
years, and is
Yeah,
actually
your family,
environmentally
that's
friendly.
why.
They say that you can't reinvent the wheel, but if you're backed by enough
them
venture
that to
capital
tell
cash,
me,
you sure can try.
Wait a minute. He's on the
Told you they don't like
on the highway? Bruh,
to the conversation, and you.
I'm going 50 right now. Bruh.
At the beginning of 2020, Lime had over
They'd bag me up
120,000
anyway.
scooters
What's the point? You're
occupying
making
30
yourself look
countries.
like a whore.
While the expansion hadn't been profitable, it had certainly been explosive. But just
Oh
as
my God,
Brad's
does it keep
strategy
going?
of spending his way to world domination looked like
Think
it was
what you
paying
think, so
off,
it doesn't matter.
COVID came along and
I
killed
know
what
the
little revenue they were making. Lime was forced to retreat or pause their campaign in the majority of the countries they were operating in. Meanwhile, in Bird's techno-dystopic virtual office, Travis was trying to treat his employees like his scooters by just turning them on. Over 400 employees had their laptop access deactivated right after a 2-minute mass firing event conducted in a one-way Zoom call.
One of those decisions is to eliminate a number of roles
Drive
at the
down
company.
into your face.
Unfortunately, your role is impacted by this decision, and Friday, April 3rd, will be your last day with Bird.
As is the case for many businesses, the pandemic forced Bird to streamline. Bird is still operating in over 350 cities and is now pivoting to sell their service as a socially distanced way of traveling, which is pretty smart. Gotta give them that. And it seems to have worked too, with Travis bragging in the company's latest quarterly report that they are now losing less money than they were last year. With a net loss of just $37 million compared to the $44 million they lost last year, Bird is zooming towards losing even less money next year. Brad Bow, however, has taken a different approach, instead doubling down on venture capital, squeezing an extra $170 million worth of funding from Alphabet and Uber, alongside acquiring Uber's failed fleet of jump bikes. Still, both companies have fallen far short of their initial multi-billion-dollar valuation, opening the market to new competitors. Even in their home base of Santa Monica, both Bird and Lime have now been mostly supplanted by new companies like the Ford-owned Spin. Although if you go looking for them in West Hollywood, there are still as many birds lying around as there are homeless people shooting fentanyl between their toes. E-scooters are sort of a side effect of advances in lithium-ion batteries, which have only gotten cheaper and more efficient to a ludicrous extent over the last decade. These batteries will continue to create more innovations and more pathways towards greener transport options, which is super. But I would argue that dockless e-scooter rental companies are instead the product of a sunk cost fallacy, with those invested in their success heading towards profitability on the horizon with a half-depleted battery. What about e-scooters themselves, though? Well, experience is 9/10 of knowledge. And after riding around on one of these things myself, buying it purely for research purposes, there is one factor that's going to keep these things on the streets. They're fucking fun. They are relatively cheap, they glide real nice, they're easy to use, and they very, very rarely explode on public transport. They are so fun that British people, famous for doing what they're told, are breaking the law to ride them. And cities will generally find that legislating for their existence is a lot cheaper than filling the holes in their mass transit systems. So if you ask me, e-scooters will be checking shoulders and providing roadside dentistry on the cheap for years to come.
This guy's content kind of sucks. Roblox pressured us to delete our fucking video. What you talking shit about Roblox? I mean, yeah, people make Roblox videos. That's pretty cool.
That's
very cool, man.
Millbury,
love
anyways,
Roblox vids.
These guys are talking. All of a sudden, I hear these footsteps coming in from the adjoining room. And it's Mike Millbury. He walks into the room and he's kind of has an air of authority about it. He throws down his papers, whatever it was, scouting for him. He's talking. He's standing up. Everybody else now sitting down. He's about to take a seat across from me, and he says, "Yeah, well," into the room, and he's kind of has an air of authority about it. He throws down his papers, whatever it was, scouting book on the table, and he's talking. He's standing up. Everybody else now sitting down, but he is about to take a seat at the end of the table, across from me. He says, "Yeah, well, I think you skate faster with the puck than without it." Now, I've been talking to these scouts, and they're asking me questions very cordially and respectfully, and he walks in and he just starts talking. Like, you know, you skate faster with the puck than without it. Like some bully in grade 8 and I'm in grade 6 or something. I'm going, oh, yeah, I guess. Okay. I don't know if that's a cut either or it means something good. I really don't know.
I think that was good.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay. And then he said,
thanks, Milps.
I wasn't sure, and I was still going, maybe he is stroking me off too. But then he goes, yeah, well, I think you got lucky against Wade Belak. There's a fight on YouTube, I fight Belak, and we only played him twice that year, and it was like Jerry Seinfeld, like when he races and he doesn't want to do it ever again because he won the race. I didn't want to fight Belak again. I fought him once, and it was a great fight, and it was talked about, and of course I don't have a death wish. So he says, if you fight him 10 times, you're going to lose 9 of them. That was lucky. Not that I beat him, but we had a good one. And I said, okay, but I didn't, and we had a good fight. And he said, it's a good thing Damon Lankow played with you all year. You wouldn't have had all those points. And I said, well, it's a good thing he fucking played with me. He wouldn't have had all those points. You know, like, you know, we both improved this year.
So you're going back and forth?
We're going back and forth, and now it's getting like he's cutting me up and I'm cutting him up, and there's no punchline. Like, this isn't a joke anymore. So he says, okay, tough guy. He said, I'm going to give you a scenario. He said, you're in Tri-Cities, and you and that Lankow kid, I think he called us hoodlums. He said, you and that Lankow kid have been out, and you're having a good time, and you bring some girls back, and all of a sudden you break off with your girl and you go to her house. It's 10 to 11, but it's a 10-minute drive home, and curfew's at 11. But she spreads her legs and says, fuck me, Terry. He says, what do you do? I thought about it. I'm doing the math.
And you're not a math guy.
No, but I'm thinking about like what I actually would do, and I'm looking at myself going, curfew's at 11. Okay. So I go, I take a sip of my water that's sitting there, and I call him Mr. Milby at this point. I said, well, Mike. I said, I fuck her for 5 minutes and then I speed home. So he says, get the fuck out of my office. And the other scouts are like, some guys are putting their head down and they want to not laugh, but they're trying, and I know what's going on. I'm like, that was a fucking great answer. But when I turn around and I look up, the door opens, but it's Phil Esposito. So Phil Esposito's been standing there. I forget that they've played since they played with Boston Bruins, I guess, in the late 70s. I kind of forget all of that. And Phil is doing my last interview with Tampa Bay just next door. And so I follow him out. He goes, great fucking answer. And he shuts the door. He goes, what did you say again? And I told him. He goes, that's fucking unbelievable. He goes, his only question to me, he says, sit down. So I go in the room with him and Tony Esposito, his brother. And he's obviously the GM of Tampa, so he's scouting Tampa. Sits down, he goes, how far apart did Napoleon sleep from his wife? And I went, a Bonaparte? And he said, fucking right. So he goes, Terry, I'm not going to draft you. You're not a good enough skater. I got to be honest with you. He said, we're picking 5th, but I'm very interested in Damon Lankow. What kind of a guy is he? I said, well, he works hard, and he's often like treats the rookies well. He goes, Terry, what kind of a guy is he? Would you guys hang out? Does he stick up for you in all situations? I said, yeah, of course he does. He's one of my best friends. He goes, perfect. He said, you just won yourself a good story. And I sat there. I had a Diet Coke, and I listened to him tell me about the 1972 Summit Series for an hour. He just said, what do you want to hear? I said, I've always wanted to meet you. And I asked him about the Summit Series, about how he slipped when all the Russians laughed at him and how he turned that into a confidence booster. I swear to you, I was interviewing him for an hour, and then he let me go, and he said, perfect. And they ended up taking Damon Lankow at number 5 the next day.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, true enough.
Way over there.
Great lap. You've nailed what we asked for. Keep it up.
Why?
Okay, super job so far. We're getting great data. Stay focused.
God damn it. I'm like fucking up all of them. Dude. I need to get both all breaking. God damn it. Dude, fuck off, game. Yo, what was that? Fuck you. Dude, come on. Why is it not slowing down? Fucking piece of shit. It's just understeering. Why? Why you do this? you done this? You little bitch. Bitch ass fucking car. God, dude, this thing fucking really doesn't want to turn after a couple laps.
Great lap. You've nailed what we asked for. Keep it up.
Move, bro. You bitch. Make the bitch. Right. Nah, just kidding. Just kidding. Make sure I'm gonna keep.
Okay, super job so far. We're getting great data. Stay focused.
For letting me use your Valorant account. You bitch car.
Test complete, and that was a very good job indeed. We got a lot of valuable information out of that.
This track is so bonkers. Oh shit, I should go on a flyer. Look at that. Come on. Fuck, I hate braking. Wouldn't racing be cool if you just didn't have to fucking slow down? Oh, that's NASCAR. Yo, how the fuck did I not go purple that time? What the fuck? Oh my god, I hate how inconsistent my fucking braking is. It's so stupid. Fuck off, game. Doesn't gain me an advantage. Those curves are like fucking crazy over there. Fuck you, god damn it. Slow down properly. Fucking car. Slow the fuck down. fucking slow down, right? You piece of fucking shit. Dude, I fucking hate this goddamn thing so much. It's so fucking stupid. God damn it. Piece of fucking shit. Fuck you, game. God, I fucking hate that. God, I fucking hate this game. It's so fucking stupid sometimes. God damn it. Like, no fucking ability. Fucking piece of goddamn
Are you all right?
shit.
Engine off. Engine off.
So stupid. Dude, fuck off. Oh my god. Game is so fucking touchy. Fucking corners. Piss the fucking sucks ass. God damn. What purple in sector 1 and then just like the rest of the lap was like, nah, no brakes. God, I hate the fucking AI in this game so much too.
Fuel is marginal. Box within 2 laps.
God, you fucking asshole. Learn to drive, Gasly. Get the fuck out of the way. Dumbass. God. They just use the AI driving like fucking jackass. I'm not losing that much fucking time. I'm not gonna get P1. Fuck. Better off just ending the session before I get too angry at this stupid practice program.
Hey there. Let's see what people. Hey. are saying about climate change on the good old internet.
Always been changing. It is a liberal hoax to
take my truck away.
Cool. Hi, I'm Raleigh Williams, climate science grad student, and the guy who's got to get that laptop after this. Damn it. A lot of people have been lied to about climate change, and it's hard to tell what's real. But if you give me 2 minutes of your time, I can give you some extremely fact-checkable evidence that might help convince you that climate change is happening. Welcome to Climate Town. Okay, number one, every oil, coal, and gas company has admitted that climate change is real and humans are causing it. All of them. All of them. Now, they have super good lawyers, so they probably won't face any consequences for their actions. But after years of loudly denying climate change, they have finally all quietly accepted the blame. And you don't have to take my word for this. Just Google climate change and then the name of any oil company and go buck wild on their corporate website. Here are the climate change is real sections of BP. Example.
The session has drawn to a close, so let's review our top three. Verstappen, Bottas, and Lewis Hamilton.
Hey man,
and if today's practice is anything to go by,
Number two,
we're in for
all
an
of America's
exceptional
insurance
weekend
companies
of
and
Formula
economist
One.
groups agree that climate change is slowly taking a baseball bat to the balls of the American economy. All of them. Conservative, liberal, young, old, Dracula. They're not being paid off by big climate, because that's not a thing. And just to be clear, this is not theoretical. Actual insurance companies are paying billions of dollars because there are more fires and floods and droughts and storms and heat waves. I mean, there's always going to be 1,000 bing-bongs on Twitter talking shit about climate change, but the people whose actual job it is to predict risk are saying climate change is just number one. And number three, every scientific community in every country in the world agrees that climate change is dangerous and we have a limited amount of time to stop it. All of them. These are not political, they're not partisan, they're just scientists in their science labs doing science shit. They're pouring beakers into smaller beakers, they're looking at air, and they're using computers. They are not in cahoots. In fact, they're actively trying to prove each other wrong because that's how you get to the top of the science community.
Punch the line!
Think about it. There are literal trillions of dollars in funding waiting for the first scientist who can prove climate change is a hoax. Don't you think it's a little weird that no one has come forward with the evidence? What are you doing? Hey, I'm talking to you. Did you poop here? Oh, okay, mature. Real mature. Fucking goose. So yes, a few extra carbon dioxide molecules in the atmosphere cooking a planet seems counterintuitive. But so does using electrified liquid crystals on a supercomputer the size of an Eggo waffle to watch a guy talk about climate change, yet here we are. We ask science to figure out things for us all the time, and they've figured out climate change so hard that even the companies with a financial interest in denying it have gotten on board. It's good to be skeptical, and it's stupid to blindly follow authority. But it's not exactly smart to get all your information from memes and some guy on Facebook. So just ask yourself this. What's more likely? That a shadowy cabal of all the climate scientists, economists, oil companies, and insurance firms in the world are involved in a 100-year conspiracy that's only ever been found out by an intrepid handful of uncles with a tenuous grasp on Photoshop, or that email you just got that was the subject line forward, you gotta see this climate change hoax might not have been completely trustworthy. And that's it. Was that 2 minutes?
3 minutes.
Climate change hoax. What's more likely? That a shadowy cabal of all the climate scientists, economists, oil companies, and insurance firms in the world are involved in a 100-year conspiracy that's only ever been found out by an intrepid handful of uncles with a tenuous grasp on Photoshop.
Greta trying to stop my truck, not today, you city slicker.
Or that email you just got that was the subject line forward, you gotta see this climate change hoax might not have been completely trustworthy. And that's it. Was that 2 minutes?
3 minutes.
Oh, way over. Okay, sorry. Thank you for watching if you got this far. If you want to send this to somebody who might be a skeptic, I think that would be good. Obviously, I'm not going to convince everybody, but if I can get
6 people to do a little Googling, that's probably worth it. Okay, I gotta get that laptop. I could just leave it. No, I can't. This is a climate thing. That'd be okay. Okay. Ah. I lost. There we go. There it is.
It's like a fucking powerboat.
Is
G4.
this comedy? Is any of this funny? Was it worth it? Maybe. We'll see. Thanks for watching. Oh, God.
Turkmenistan.
This is the Darvaza gas crater in Turkmenistan, a man-made abyss that the Soviets, in their quest for oil, accidentally opened in the Karakum desert as a result of a gas leak. A crater that since 1971 has been engulfed in flames without ever extinguishing for a single day. So, Turkmenistan.
What?
Turkmenistan is a mix of contrasts, of beauty and mess. This is what you can find online when you search for Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is one of the most remote and inaccessible land in the world. It's a forgotten nation, not to mention its history. What's its capital? Don't look on Wikipedia. I give you 3 seconds to answer. Ashgabat. You got it? Awesome. You're going to Gulag as a reward. What many of you might not know is that Turkmenistan was and is still today one of the most unusual dictatorship ever. But let me explain how they got there. It's history time. Turkmenistan isolation needs to be seen in its geopolitical context. The country is bordered to the south by Iran and Afghanistan, to the north by Kazakhstan. To the northeast by Uzbekistan and to the west by the Caspian Sea. The Karakum Desert dominates almost all of the country, about 90% of the territory, while in the south a series of mountain ranges form a natural border with Iran and Afghanistan. In the north, the border with Uzbekistan is partly divided by the Amu Darya River, one of the most important water resources in Central Asia. Turkmenistan's river valleys have sustained its civilization since ancient times. Although the region was dominated for many centuries by Turkmen tribes, Turkmenistan as a political entity only emerged in
Is my CPU like cranking?
the last century. During the Soviet period, the country was an underdeveloped socialist republic. For the Soviets, Turkmenistan served as a supplier of raw materials, starting from raw cotton fiber, oil and natural gas, its main resources. For the rest, the country was supported by the meager economic aid from the USSR. In boosting cotton production, there was an intense development of the irrigation system, which, however, produced very serious damage to the surrounding environment. The flow of the Amu Darya was redirected to the main desert farms. These only contributed to the drying up of the Aral Lake on the border between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. An environmental disaster. The flow of the Amu Darya was redirected to the main desert farms. These only contributed to the During the Soviet period, the country was an underdeveloped socialist republic. For the Soviets, Turkmenistan served as a supplier of raw materials, starting from raw cotton fiber, oil and natural gas, its main resources. For the rest, the country was supported by the meager economic aid from the USSR. In boosting cotton production, there was an intense development of the irrigation system, which, however, produced very serious damage by the meager economic aid from the USSR. In boosting cotton production, there was an intense development of the irrigation system, which, however, produced very serious damage to the surrounding environment. The flow of the Amudarya was redirected to the main desert farms. These only contributed to the drying up of the Aral Lake on the border between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, an environmental disaster that, among other things, fueled disagreements among Central Asian nations over the consumption of natural resources and waterways.
With the end of subsidies, the fall of the Soviet Union and the country's independence in 1991, pretty much everything non-related with the gas industry went bankrupt.
Unemployment arose, among the highest in the world, more than 60%, and this led the country to export gas at competitive prices in order to face the hegemony of Russia in the area.
Once independent, Turkmenistan began celebrating a policy of neutrality.
This monument in Ashgabat was the symbol of such neutrality and served the government as a way to create favorable diplomacy with its Central Asian neighbors. Hopefully, this tower was also created to attract the attention of foreign investors. Turkmenistan, after all, needed money.
That's basically what everyone needs, come on.
It needed money to revitalize the gas industry and establish an emirate state, just like Kuwait did before. With approximately 2.7 trillion cubic meters of natural gas reserves, Turkmenistan was in fact the second largest producer in the former Soviet Union and is currently the 9th largest producer globally.
A share that could let Turkmenistan achieve incredible economic development in an ideal world.
However, after independence, the government of Turkmenistan was never eager to implement serious reforms, for example by liberalizing prices and allowing a real private sector to emerge. Despite some improvements in recent years, a large part of the population still lives below the poverty line, and the economy is fragile and stagnant, contrary to the claims of the country's former president for life, the so-called Turkmenbashi, a title which means literally father of all Turkmens. According to Turkmenbashi and his annual reports, the national growth rate was 20% in August 2006.
I smell something rotten in here.
Based on the official versions, the president died of a heart attack a few months later. According to others, he was poisoned. What's certain is that he had no way of appreciating the benefits that this alleged 20% growth rate would have had on the country.
But the real question is, who's Saparmiryat Niyazov, aka Turkmenbashi, and why is he so important for all of us? Well, maybe not all of us. Was he a megalomaniac dictator? A liar, a madman in power, a shrewd calculator who leveraged national symbolism?
But he is not a porn star!
To answer these questions, all it takes is a simple yes. Let's see why.
Every single year on September 12, the citizens of Turkmenistan gather to celebrate Runama Day, the national holiday honoring the Runama, literally the Book of the Soul, a work of spiritual teachings addressed to the nation and written by the president himself.
Or by one of his fellow ghostwriters. But never say never. Niyazov was a poet, after all, and a dictator.
In 2002, in the capital Ashgabat, a massive statue of the book was raised, and every evening at 8 o'clock, the cover was raised and open to the public. In the main square, an audio recording of some passages, together with a video projected on the page of the book, was broadcasted. Building huge statues was one of Turkmenbashi's main obsessions. Even better if these huge statues were covered in gold and were dedicated to him.
And recently also to his dog. Yep.
This fixation was so strong that Turkmenbashi imposed that they were spread in all the cities of the nation. Referring to this obsession, Niyazov repeatedly stressed that it wasn't due to reasons of megalomania, but simply because it was the Turkmen people who wanted them all over the country.
Reverse psychology at its finest.
Another interesting case of Niyazov mentality was the New Year's Eve of 1999, when every citizen of Ashgabat was given a watch with a picture of the president himself.
Our dear Berlusconi did the same in Italy in 1999 when he gave us a calculator to calculate the euro-lira exchange rate. I see no difference at all.
Niyazov's strange policies served as a way to emphasize the Turkmen national symbolism, to the point that many foreign commentators described Turkmenistan under Niyazov as a fascist state inserted in a post-Soviet space. Niyazov transferred Soviet ideology to secure the narrative of a Turkmen national superiority. In his Runama, Niyazov argued that Turkmen national development began more than 5,000 years ago. And, as he said, Turkmenistan can now live separate and isolated from other states while maintaining its traditions and customs. This was the turning point for Turkmenistan, when it began to look more like North Korea than Russia. In every place, the words and the most striking quotations of the glorious leader, as he was called, were inscribed on walls, plates and billboards.
A series of great public monuments exalted its virtues. Cities, dams, roads, libraries and schools, all named and built in his honor. Knowledge of the main chapters of Runama was demanded not only from governmental officials, but also from ordinary people.
For instance, people were required to repeat some of the Runama quotes when taking the driving license tests. To ensure that Turkmen would not lose sight of their glorious leader in their daily activities, Turkmenbashi invented another way to remind citizens of his presence. He declared that every month of the year should be renamed. January was named Turkmenbashi in his honor, while April was named in memory of his mother, Gurban Sultan.
Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but in Turkmenistan, worshipping family members was and still is in fact one of the hallmarks of the regime, much more than in other neighboring countries.
Before becoming known as Turkmenbashi and as the spiritual father of the country, Niyazov was one of the many faceless grey and anonymous local party bureaucrats, a staunch supporter of the Soviet ideology in Turkmenistan. Yet, as the union unraveled, Niyazov switched political flags, shifting surprisingly quickly in favor of Turkmen nationalism. A case in point was when, at the end of the last formal meeting of the party, after lunch, Niyazov gathered the same members in the same hall to found the Democratic Party of Turkmenistan.
We are the Communist Party. Oh, never mind. We are not the Communist Party anymore.
By consolidating control over all aspects of society, economy and government, Turkmenbashi exploited what remained of the skeleton of the Soviet system to create a political machine based on constraint, fear, nepotism and patronage. In taking advantage of the weakness of what was considered a de facto country made up of tribal chief and herding clans, Turkmenbashi installed a hybrid system where, quote-unquote, traditional elements of tribal society were combined with modern elements of the typical Soviet power hierarchy.
But how was it that Niyazov, a single man, was able to take control of Turkmenistan by himself? Well, one single word can be enough. Monopolization. Monopolization of the country's vast reserves of natural gas, from which Turkmenistan didn't benefit at all during the Soviet period.
By extracting and shipping gas through the pipelines to Russia, the country earned meager revenues from the sale of its primary commodity. Niyazov exploited the nationalization of gas and took control of all the industrial plants. But, sadly for the population, the brokerage companies that operated on his behalf would have done nothing but commercialize Turkmen gas and channel the revenues into the president's bank accounts. Revenues that served as his main source of income.
To give a semblance of general economic improvements, Turkmenbashi undertook a series of daring state projects. This was done to consolidate his consensus among a population that, at that time, do remember, registered a high illiteracy.
The capital Ashgabat, from an underdeveloped village, became a showcase for foreign investors, made of majestic public buildings in white marble, sumptuous parks and wide streets, which are still today almost empty. Water scarcity was a daily issue, and yet more than 1,000 fountains were built. Behind the glittering facade of public buildings, Turkmenistan remained a country marked by isolation, poverty and the systematic suppression of freedom of speech. The only applicable law was that of Niyazov himself, who, besides controlling the information and media, deprived courts and parliamentary institutions of their power.
Niyazov justified the absence of pro-democratic reforms due to what he called the Turkmen mentality. That is a mentality that was at odds with pro-Western democracy.
Niyazov banned everything that was not part of the Turkmen culture. These included video games, car radios, makeups, ballet and opera, long hair and beards for men, and last but not least, dogs. Because according to him, when walking down the streets of the capital, dogs gave off a bad smell.
Turkmenistan became a sort of big brother managed by a single man.
The term bread was changed to his mother's name. Doctors, instead of swearing to Hippocrates, swore to him. The Cyrillic alphabet was replaced with the Turkmen alphabet, similar to the Latin one, and any exam could be passed only after passing a morality test as well. Oh, yeah, and among other extravagances, Niazov suggested to the old people to chew chicken bones, a bit like dogs do, saying that in this way they would avoid all dental problems.
Who needs implants anyway?
Contributing to the isolation was the systematic dismantling of school, libraries and cultural clubs. After all, it's much easier to keep control over an ignorant and uneducated population, isn't it? The mass media and even the police force were corrupted with bribes. As stated by a journalist who fled the country, for the past 12 years, Turkmenbashi plunged the country into a neo-Stalinist nightmare. Although the country had adopted shortly after independence a constitution conforming to international standards, it didn't actually have the basic structure to defend any single civil liberties.
Basically, the constitution became just scrap paper that Turkmenbashi punctually reshaped at his own will. Another nice aspect of Niazov were his big lies.
By exaggerating the country's progress and insisting that Turkmen citizens were lucky to live in a country with advanced freedoms and privileges, Niazov exalted and justified not only his own position as the country father's defender, but also his attacks on anyone who questioned the country's progress. Attacks that were condemned as accusations made by supporters of foreign powers, whether it be American, Russian or European.
Niazov repeatedly said that Turkmenistan was free of crimes of any kind and that no rights had ever been violated in the country.
In November 2002, however, following an assassination attempt against him, the president seized the opportunity to cast suspicion on some ministers who were openly against him, including the ex-foreign minister Boris Shikmuradov. Niazov also accused the Uzbek minority in the country and the Uzbek government of being involved in the matter.
A way to highlight, once again at the expense of the Uzbek minority, how special Turkmens were.
Support to Niazov came from those who ran the country's key sectors, namely the energy, banking and agricultural sectors. Corruption and political compromise did the rest.
It was either unconditional loyalty to the great leader or elimination.
As Niazov often declared in his public rallies, there was no opposition in Turkmenistan.
I think we should trust him and not see this as a subtle threat.
The country's predominant religion itself, Islam, had to pass through the filter of propaganda. In one of the sessions of the People's Council, Niazov proclaimed himself as the new Prophet Muhammad.
He went even beyond when he claimed that his book, Runama, was the equivalent of the Quran.
According to Niazov, whoever read the Runama aloud 3 times a day would go straight to heaven. As you can well understand, Islam underwent a strong ideological control in order to limit its potential impacts on the population. Islam could have been an alternative choice and potentially a political means to foster opposition.
After all, what's the point of reading Quran when you already had Runama?
By the time Niazov passed away, the country was in a pitiful state, with the economy completely paralyzed, lacking internal and external investments, with the gas and oil route
oh shit, hell yeah, I got light blue sheet.
With no monetary aid either from the big international funds or from domestic bank insurances. With the new president Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, there has been a very small change of direction.
Oh, yeah, I see.
There are still big inequalities. Think of the average salaries. An average Turkmen don't get more than $20 per month.
And that's the sad reality of Turkmenistan. We'll probably have to wait a long time before one of the most famous quotes from Runama can come true for real. Our country is not only for the Turkmen people, but for all those people who want to lead Turkmenistan into a golden century.
Did I get any cool colors? I got that light blue on. You can see. So just that blue one jump off over there. Little orange one. Poggies. Poggers. Bum, ba-dum, ba-ba-dum, ba-ba-bum. Bum, ba-dum. Okay, let's go build this motherfucking bridge, dog. I also probably should. I need to find like a coral shit. Ooh. Fuck you. fog. So it's 4. So it'll be square, square, and then. Should be like this, right? Yeah. No sapling? What the fuck, dude? Bullshit. So square, square. I think this is more. Oh no, tiles. I didn't bring tiles with me. Shit. Yo, where the fuck did my damn shit go? So it should go. So it should be 2 and then 1 farther for that. Get alive, dude. Like, fuck off, man. Dude, you fucking blew up my torch. Goddamn asshole. Fucking prick. What is that? How do I get his boots? Yo, give me those shoes, you bitch. Yo, I want his kicks. God, these little bitch ass fucking zombies. They're so fucking annoying. God damn it, there's a creeper outside too. Dude, fuck creepers, dog. Creepers don't know shit. Holy shit, I got rid of a lot of those. Oh, they missed. Not gunpowder? Fucking asshole. What's the point? Oh, I thought I was missing a torch over here too. I was like, damn, dude. Fuck stealing my torches. fuck is going on? So each one should be 3 above it. The fuck did I do here? Fucking cunt. Is that right? That doesn't fucking feel right. Wait. I think I have an extra one. Hang on. Yeah, I have extra shit. Oops. Fuck off. Piss off, you bitch. Yeah, so it should just be... like that. There you go. The only annoying thing is that if you run diagonally at it, you can still manage to fucking fall off. Ah, fucking bitch. Oh shit, I saved my thing. You fucking cunt. I hate that shit. No! The apple's gone. Fucking bullshit. Fucking bullshit. I could use some slave labor down in the, I mean, villager labor down in the mines. Dude, look at my boys. And girls like this. Get me sheeps. Would be all about them. What is top 4? Can I do anything with that? Coal, some charcoal. I got a bunch of deep slate. What the fuck do I do with all this damn deep slate? How is a wandering trader when you need some llamas? Do a fucking raw cod. I need a pet. Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you, ground. I'll fuck you Doo-wop. I think better shorter. I almost kind of feel like it would look better shorter. Like if it just went across there. Pretty sure you have to give them raw fish. Let's go see. Let's go see if we can make our friend. B. Where do you go? Fall off and fucking die. Cats don't take fall damage, do they? Yeah, I have this thing called a baked fucking potato, bitch. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Okay, so it's not cooked salmon. Let's try this. Or I think you have to do. Where did that asshole go? There it is. Fuck you, game. God, where are you? Where did you go? I just saw you. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Bitch, he ate it, didn't he? God, any more? Oh shit, this is where that. Kitty. Shit. I don't want to chase my fucking edge. Dude. Come on, dipshit. Fuck's my house. Oh, wow. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Fuck yeah, come over here. Come here. You. Hey. What's up, guys? Don't mind me. Spelling my bridge over here. No big deal. Fuck, there's 4 of them. Okay, which one? Honestly, I think this one right here. Alright. Oh shit. Did it move closer? It's just a screen distortion, I think. Should I just go smack that motherfucker over there? friend go? Thinking I can bring a fucking kill. Where'd he go? Fucking shit. Where'd that little bitch one go? Where's the last one? Motherfucker. Damn, where'd he go? Fucking die. Fuck you, old bitch. Please give me something. Fuck off. fuck I was doing. Shit. Fucking cunt. I was wasting my fucking iron. Look at this. Look at this. finish this. Yeah, it's a kitty, I know. Fucking cunt. What's that? Oh, it's dirt. Shit. I can't believe I almost fell on my own stupid thing. Fighting a guy. What's crypto popping? Bitch. Yo, what's with the fucking raiders everywhere? I think I fuck off. What the hell is that? What the fuck? Shit. I was trying to save the villager. Oh my god. What? Fuck off. Hit the ground too hard. I jumped off a fucking... like that. Fuck off, you piece of shit. Did it die? I think he died. What the fuck happened to him? That was not a fucking booth. Fucker. Can't he get out of there? Oh, it's because of flowing water. Motherfucker. like in the middle of fucking killing those jackasses. Hello. Did it reconnect? Jesus Christ. God. The hell? Would they kick everybody off Minecraft? Fucking assholes. Come on. All I want to do is load back into the world so that I can fucking move back to where I need to be. Because what the fuck? Literally just chooses to DC at like the worst fucking time. Let's see, it's gonna put me dead in the water. Nikki, I made it back. Dang. What was that? Hero of the village. the fuck does that mean? Ran away. That's the better part. The rest took on a run. Kind of ran at one point. No, I need to make a sword. I should have made a stone shovel. What the fuck? Oh, they got a crafting table over here, don't they? You fucking bitch. I might have accidentally caused one of the villagers to die, but I think TJ might forgive me for that. Oh, fuck off. Huh. Oh, you'll give me leather? I give you leather? Huh. Those are a pretty decent deal, to be honest, dog. There's a crafting table here, in there? Or did, like, somebody steal it? just wood or dirt. Fucking shit, dude. Who thought this was a good idea? What the hell is everybody? Yeah, is he the only one left? Oh, fuck, he's really low there. Oh shit. There might go my plan. Gonna breed a bunch of goddamn fucking villagers. Wait, those are different? What the fuck? Oh, potato. It's like, why am I fucking eating a damn potato? stupid fucking game. Fuck out of here, you piece of shit. Yeah, that's fucking annoying, Katie. And of course he just walks through the door. No big deal. I fucking hate this stupid fucking game. Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you, asshole. Stop the goddamn carry, you piece of shit. God damn it, stop fucking up my damn shit. God, I hate this fucking game. We got a spotter in the pig pen. We got a spotter in the pig pen again. Shit. Shit. Fuck you up. You're fucking kidding me, dude. God damn. Dude, there's so many fucking seeds. Oh my god. Maybe I should move the bamboo. Somewhere else. Fucking damn, dude. Okay, I got way too many fucking. Jesus Christ. Okay, some doors are shut. Some despawn points.